Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in again. It's just me today. Um, Cody is still visiting family up in Washington, and so he should be back, I think, sometime this week. But in the meantime, I just wanted to drop in and say hi. I appreciate all you guys for watching and following along as we try to get this thing going here. I just want to talk about a quick article I saw the other day um, where the British Tribunal, I guess some people in the British Tribunal, made the claim that belief in Genesis 1 is incompatible with human dignity. When I read that headline, I immediately thought to myself, okay, are people trying to take things that are just obviously true and say that they're false just to create a headline, just to create a story? And then I get to reading and listening to some of these people, like they actually believe they're nonsense. They really do. Um, think about it. If Genesis 1 is not true, which they would say it's not, then there is no such thing as human dignity. If what they say, like they're probably evolutionists, or in some form or fashion, if all we are is the result of a series of random natural processes that took place over millions of years, and through survival of the fittest and natural selection, we ended up here where we are, then they're right. There is no such thing as human dignity. But they believe that human dignity exists. And we have the only foundational basis that can satisfy the necessary preconditions to say that human dignity exists. And they're trying to say that no, belief in Genesis 1 is incompatible with human dignity. No, sir. You need Genesis 1 to have human dignity. Genesis 1:27 says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. If Genesis 1:27 is false, then human dignity does not exist. That's it. But why do these atheists and evolutionists believe in human dignity? Like they will come right alongside us and say that people need to be treated with dignity and respect and love, no matter who they are or what they believe, how old, how young, and we're like, right on, high five. We agree with that. But we, as people, as Christians who hold to the biblical worldview, we have that foundational basis to say that. They do not. And what's interesting is when you see a headline that says Genesis 1 is incompatible with human dignity, they are having to steal from our worldview to argue against it. It is silly. They want to argue against the biblical worldview, but they have to steal from the biblical worldview to argue against it. Why? It's like if God didn't create all this, then there is no such thing as right and wrong. There is no such thing as objective truth or objective morality. Right? Richard Dawkins, a famous atheist, even said he was trying to be consistent, but even in this statement he shows his inconsistency. He says, there is no right and wrong. There's only blind and pitiless indifference. He's making a truth claim, which he would believe is right, when he says there is no right and wrong. You see how silly that is? Yet he'll show up to debate a Christian on what he believes is right and what he believes is wrong. You see, it really is, there's two options, really. You can choose God or you can choose absurdity. And the majority of the world chooses absurdity. Why? Because they love their sin and they don't want to be held accountable to a holy and just God. Romans 1 is clear on this. Like, although they knew God, they didn't honor him as God, right? So what they do is everyone knows God exists, but in their unrighteousness, they suppress that truth, right? Because they love their sin and they don't want to be held accountable for it. So, again, this article is, again, it said, belief in Genesis 1 is incompatible with human dignity. Belief in Genesis, here's what it should say. Belief in Genesis 1 gives us the foundational basis for the existence of human dignity. A rejection of Genesis 1 means that you cannot hold the belief that humans should be treated with dignity, respect, and love. Right? Because if Genesis 1 isn't true, and all we are is a result of random natural processes, our ancestors were fish, we're just bipedal protoplasm walking around. There is no purpose for our existence. The universe is completely ungoverned and unguided. Here we are, just we live, we die, natural selection, evolution just moves on. If that is all true, then there is no such thing as human dignity. We're just another species that came from highly evolved societies of bacteria. But as Christians who hold to the biblical worldview, we know that's absurd. We know that is false, right? And what's very astonishing to me is how many of these people who promulgate this stuff and say they're try to be up here, like I'm on the intellectual high ground and all you peasants who believe in creationism are just silly. They claim science is on their side and it is not. For evolution to be true, at some point there has to be time where new genetic information comes into existence, right? Because they say that all living things trace their ancestry back to one single life source, right? Meaning that from this one life source comes all the different species of plants and animals, and everything that lives owes its existence to this one thing, which means that for that to happen, new genetic information would have to come about in history. You know what? Science has never shown us that. Matter of fact, science points in the opposite direction. As we see, as time goes on and speciation occurs and adaptation occurs and mutation occurs, biology shows us that there is not new genetic information coming about. It shows us the opposite. There is a loss of genetic information. And again, it's just astonishing that these scientists, the Neil deGrasse Tysons, you can go on and on with them, want to claim the intellectual high ground, and they want to claim science is on their side when there's nothing can be further from the truth. And it's so interesting too. So science itself is dependent upon induction, right? And the uniformity of nature, knowing the future will be like the past. Science is based on experimentation and observation, right? And things that can be repeated. What we learn from the past and we apply in the future, right? Science is dependent upon that. If we live in a completely ungoverned and unguided universe, then where do you get induction from that? You don't. You don't. One last thing, and I kind of rambled on there for a second. The point I'm trying to make is this. We are Christians. We hold to the biblical worldview. Therefore, we are the only group of people that can satisfy the necessary preconditions, or at least we have a foundational basis that can satisfy the necessary preconditions for truth, morality, ethics, knowledge, um, dignity, human beings being treated with dignity and respect. Like we're the only ones that can consistently answer these things. And anyone who objects to the biblical worldview, if someone says Christianity is wrong, they have to steal from a Christian worldview to make that claim. They have no foundation to stand on. They're reduced to absurdity. And I know that may sound harsh and mean, but it is true. You can either pick God or you can pick absurdity, because there's no in between. There is no neutrality here. If Genesis 1 is true, that God spoke this universe into existence, He created mankind on the sixth day. Man did not evolve over millions of years. See, those things are antithetical to one another. And some people even try to marry the two together. Well, I believe in creation and evolution. That, yeah, God created everything, but we evolved. No, you cannot believe both. Pick one. Because they teach two different things. The Bible teaches God created man on the sixth day and in His image. Evolution teaches man evolved over millions of years. You can't hold to both of those things. Pick one. I am going to warn you, though, if you pick the evolutionist side, then you have no foundational basis to complain about anything, to make a truth claim, to argue for what you believe is right, what you believe is wrong, to even rely on the laws of logic in a conversation. You can't even trust your own reasoning. It's not going to be fun for you. But if you reject absurdity and cling to God, cling to Christ, and His progressive redemptive work throughout the course of human history. Right? Think about it. All worldviews have to answer four big questions. How did we get here? What went wrong? How is it fixed? And how will it end? Only Christians can answer those four questions and be consistent with how we answer them. How did we get here? In the beginning, God. What went wrong? Man rebelled against a holy and just God who spoke this universe into existence. That's what went wrong. That's why we see so much evil and hurt in the world. We live in a fallen world filled with fallen people. How is it fixed? Through the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. He left His rightful place in heaven, came to earth to live the perfect and sinless life that we could not live. And He voluntarily went to the cross. And on the cross, He stood in our place. He substituted Himself for His people. And He took on all the wrath of God that we deserve for our sin, our brokenness, our fallenness, our depravity. He took all that on Himself. And He hung there and He suffered the wrath of His own Father for our behalf. And He died. And He was buried. And He rose again on the third day, proving He really was God. And our response is to repent from those sins that has separated us from God, turn away from them, and turn to Christ in faith, that what He says He did, He really did. And then finally, question number 4 is, how will it end? Jesus is coming back someday, and He is going to make all things new. Every worldview has to answer those 4 questions. We are the only ones that are consistent in how we answer those. And the sign of all failed worldviews is inconsistency. I appreciate you guys watching us. I appreciate you guys supporting the channel here. It is October. I haven't talked to Cody about this, but it is Reformation Month. So I'm imagining our next few episodes may revolve around the Reformation. Again, I'm just throwing this out here. I haven't talked to Cody in a few days. But anyway, yeah. Sola Scriptura, Sola Gratia, Sola Fide, Sola Christus, Sola Deo Gloria. If you don't know what those are, watch the next couple of episodes. if you do know what those are, watch them anyway. And teach others what they are, because it changed the world. Thank you guys. God bless.